Hi, I'm Flame Schroeder. I'm a master certified coach and owner of a personal development coaching practice called Coach Flame.
And I'm Jeanne Ivy, a creative director, artist, and owner of the creative consultancy Ivy Magic. And together, Flame and I are
the Spark Sisters.
In the process of working with Flame as my coach, we discovered that we had complementary and kindred ideas about how to help others find their spark and own their unique place in the world. Eventually, we started talking about how we might share these ideas with others, tapping into the natural riffing style that happened whenever we talked.
And that's a glimpse into how the Spark Sisters podcast began. We have seen and felt the magic of learning to be authentic in our own lives. And that is at the heart of this podcast. We wanted to share the way that we did it, not so that you would do it our way, but because sometimes when you hear someone else say their way, then you discover your own. We want you to live from your authentic spark.
Hi, everyone. So we're going to start off our series today talking about what authenticity actually is and why it matters. So, Flame, I have the first question for you for today's episode. And that really is, how do you define authenticity?
Right. That's a good question. One I probably should have thought about more before we started recording this. For me, authenticity is the capacity to let who you really are on the inside shine through in your behavior and your actions. What would you say?
I would say it's very similar to that. And I think there's also an element of wholeness to it, that it's not just about being unfiltered. That's not necessarily synonymous with authenticity. Just because you are being unfiltered, that being unfiltered or that shooting from the hip might be coming from a place of brokenness. So that's not necessarily, your true authentic self.
I love that you said wholeness. The word that came up for me was alignment, right? When I'm really being authentic, I'm in alignment with the best parts of myself, with my core values, with what makes me integrous, right? And integrity and wholeness literally mean the same thing. Yeah. And I love what you said about the brokenness too, because one of my questions for you is, why does authenticity feel so vulnerable? Right? Like if authenticity is so great, why aren't we just doing it all the time?
Yeah, right. And that there is that big fear of judgment. Like, I'm going to share who I really am with the world. And what if the world doesn't want me? Or what if the people that I want me don't get it, don't see it? And so there does feel like there's this element of risk with authenticity, of, putting yourself out there. And what if that's not accepted?
Yeah. What if I take my most tender parts and offer them up to the world and the world says, no, not that.
Yeah.
Not you.
Yeah. Where do you think that fear comes from?
It kind of seems like the universal human condition, right? It's like, It makes me think of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. That what it is to be human inherently is to have these incredible gifts to contribute to humankind. And we know they're in there, right? We feel like we could go on that heroic journey. We could be Luke Skywalker. We could be Harry Potter. We could be Katniss Everdeen. And then the reality of what it takes to do that here on planet Earth is hard and unpredictable and uncertain. And that's where that vulnerability, it's like the nature of what it is to be a human being, to have a heart like that, but to be on a planet where there are obstacles and we have feelings that seem very real, feelings of rejection, feelings of pain, feelings of suffering.
Yeah. So it does feel like there's some work that's involved in being authentic, and that it seems like, maybe part of that work is first figuring out, well, who is my authentic self? So when we talk about that, and I know that throughout this series, this is going to be something that keeps coming up, But Flame, what would you say? Like, how do you start that journey towards finding out who your authentic self actually is?
Well, I think it's actually some really good news that our feelings are pointing us to it all the time, and our experience is pointing us to it all the time. So if you're experiencing a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment and you're like in the flow, well, hello, that's your authentic. Those are the hallmarks of authenticity being in play. Good work. Keep going. On the flip side, if you're experiencing a lot of frustration, resentment, fear, although fear can be a little tricky, but disharmony, feeling really separate from people, those are hallmarks that there's probably something different you need to be doing there. And some part of you knows that and is like metaphorically tapping you on the shoulder, trying to get your attention about it.
Wow, I love that. I love all of that. And I want to come back to what you said about fear's a little tricky. What do you mean by that?
Well, because I think there's the fear of being our most tender hearts out in the world, of being vulnerable, of being authentic. But then it can also be that you are being authentic and you're about to do it. You know what I mean? The rubber has met the road and you are actually doing it. And then you get scared right then. But that fear has a different quality to it, right? That's not so much the worry. It's more primal amygdala, reptilian fight or flight, right? As opposed to like existential angst. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
Existential angst is related more to like being inauthentic at the ground level.
Yeah.
But everyone gets scared as you're about to do it. When you're about to ask the man you love to marry you, or when you're about to take on your new job, like you're going to get scared. That's normal. You can sort of hold that. Like, yeah, okay, that's part of the human experience. Take a deep breath and gently move past it. But the existential angst, sometimes that's a little harder. And that's more of I think the reckoning between who we really are and who we worry we are, that then causes inauthenticity because we choose who we worry we are or who we are afraid we are.
Ooh, I love that.
Okay, so this brings up a good question. What's the alternative to being authentic?
Well, you know what? The thing that springs to mind is smaller, that you're stuffing yourself down into a smaller place. And when you do that, your capacity to have the amount of love and adventure and fulfillment and satisfaction in your life becomes stunted because you are not choosing to live in the fullness of who you are and what you want to be in the world.
You're making me think of Brené Brown, and her research clearly shows that the more we dim our capacity to experience our own pain and our own vulnerability, the more we also dim our capacity to experience joy, abundance, closeness, and all the other beautiful parts of life.
Yes. So what would you say it is? What for you, how do you sort of define that opposite of being authentic?
Pretending. There's a falseness or a fakeness to myself when I'm not being authentic, and I'm putting other people's needs or wants, or my perception of their needs and wants.
Oh, yeah.
To add another layer of on top of it, my perception of their needs and wants ahead of what my own feelings may be telling me or what my own insight or wisdom might have me do. A lot of times I notice that has to do with a desire to belong.
Oh,
right. Like I want to have this partner, or I want to be this kind of mother, or I want to be this kind of daughter. And so on one level, maybe it's an experiment, but then it becomes like an experiment that's gone too far and I didn't get right with myself first.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting to me as well is how we can become so good at sometimes convincing ourselves we're being authentic when we're still pretending. You know, when we have sort of convinced ourselves that like, this is what a good mother looks like. This is what a good employee looks like. This is what a good leader looks like. And so we're like, well, if that's what that person looks like, and I'm being what I consider that person to be like, then I'm being authentic, then I'm doing things right. But sometimes it's that departure from what the sort of common wisdom would say is the good mother, the good employee, the good leader, where the magic happens, where that sort of differentiation happens, then all sorts of amazing things start happening.
So now we're getting to the heart of why authenticity matters.
Oh, true. Yes.
Right? That magic, that, dare I say, pixie dust that comes when we really show up. There's no substitute, right?
Right.
But before we go full on in that, I want to pause for one more second. So if authenticity is the thing, one of the things that makes it so that we can really experience all the good in life, then why the heck is inauthenticity so seductive? Why do we keep doing it?
That's a really good question. Well, maybe let's just make this like personal. Like, let's just each answer that question. Flame, why do you think that in times of your life when you have been more inauthentic, why did you choose it?
I suppose when I was younger, it was because I didn't know myself. Like you said, some of it is a journey, right? All of life becomes an evolution where we're sort of peeling back the layers to discover what is more and more authentic. And I guess I'm going to bring myself back to belonging, that drive to know where I fit and for me to be a good girl. I'm a type 1 on the Enneagram, right? And I, for better or worse, I'm just going to be the perfect girl. And so that on one level, it almost sounds like like trying to become the archetype.
Yeah.
Like a striving for something that I'm not yet. But then, like I said, it maybe goes too far, or there wasn't a pause to check in and say, but do I feel satisfied with this? Is this really resonating with me? Is this having the impact that I hoped it would have on my family or my community or my inner experience? So yeah, I guess I'm back at belonging.
Yeah.
How about for you? What would the personal answer be for you?
I think when I have found myself slipping into authenticity, it's usually because I am trying to people please, and I am trying to fit the perception or what my perception is of what the people around me or the people I'm working with, what I think they want from me. And for me, getting back to the Enneagram, I'm type 9. And so the people pleasing for me is often about keeping the peace. Like, how can I just keep things moving and sailing along? And if I can sublimate myself and just be what other people expect me to be, whether or not that aligns with who I actually am or not, then things will just be smooth. And that, I guess, that also does fit in with belonging, that all fit in to this scenario, this situation. And there's something about that strangely feels easier. Like the situation will be easier if I just get along and go along, or whatever that phrase is. You know what I mean?
I do.
So like that is overall going to make things easier if I just do that. And it might actually be harder if I let my full self shine and realize I might ruffle some feathers because I'm not neatly fitting into a particular box someone has put me in, or that I've put myself in. And so it can feel strangely easier to be inauthentic, but in the long run, it's not, it's toxic.
It is really like playing the short game and forgetting the long game is really problematic.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's flip back to, so why does authenticity matter? Because I think we're right here. If we do play the short game and we aim to fit in or belong and we sublimate ourselves in the process of that, what don't we get in the long game?
Again, I'm going to just talk from my own experience here. I notice that my relationships and my work are so much more rewarding when I am authentic. And that I just kind of shine brighter. And I've noticed this myself. So I had this client, a creative direction client, and she was preparing this book proposal. And she sent me her first draft and asked me to take a look at it. And when I read it, I mean, it was like, I don't know, 50 pages. And I was like, this is clean. It's grammatically correct. Everything about it is accurate. The subject she's talking about, wanting to write this book about, is worthwhile. But there was something about it that was just kind of gray. Now, I caught these little sparkles. There were sentences or paragraphs that were just sort of hidden throughout, where the words sprang off the page. And she was definitely being more herself, not what she thought someone writing a book proposal should sound like. So the feedback I gave to her was maybe dial up those sections more throughout. And when she gave me the second draft, all of a sudden, it was no longer a book that was worthwhile. It was a book I actually wanted to read because she was being authentic. And those pieces of truth about who she was made her shine brighter and made her work shine brighter. And I keep thinking about this, Flame, because I'm like, you know what? Man, that applies to all of us in what we do. Not only is it more satisfying for ourselves to be more authentic, it's better for our communities, our audiences, our families. There's something, again, that's magical when we allow ourselves to be who we really are.
I'm thinking of the Marianne Williamson quote that it's not our darkness that worries us the most, that scares us the most, it's our light.
Yes.
And at the end of it, at the end of the excerpt that most people are familiar with, it says, and the more we do this, the more we step into our authentic power and accept our light, the more we automatically empower others to do it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I read a book a couple of years ago called Deeper Dating.
Oh.
Yeah, it was good because that's sort of my, ongoing arena for life lessons is in the dating arena. And he actually has, the cover of the book has a heart encapsulated in several layers of color. And one of the fundamental ideas in the book was about learning to own your own heart and how if you can't do that for yourself, then how can you really expect to attract or keep a partner who can do that for you? Because you won't even be able to recognize them.
Yeah.
I noticed that for myself. Like, for example, I wear hearing aids in both ears. And I've needed them since I was very, very little. I've only had them really since college. But, being a young person who thinks of herself as intelligent and capable, who has a disability, was very humbling for me. And for a long time, I didn't want to own it. I would grow my hair long and never admit to people that I had hearing loss. And then I would be doing a public speaking event or something, and someone would be quiet and I really couldn't hear them. And it would get to the point where I'm starting to look stupid because I can't hear them. And it used to be this big struggle for me. Like, I did not want to be authentic about that. I wanted to hide it. I just wanted people to believe what they saw at first pass,
Yeah.
And then there came a point where I realized that there was no end to this. I could either admit that I have hearing loss or I could continue to struggle with this. And then I started to totally change my approach when I'm doing public speaking, especially if we're going to do a lot of back and forth. And now I'll just get up and say, so I wear hearing aids in both ears. So if you say something to me while my back is turned, it may be that I didn't hear you. So just keep that in mind. And if I ask you to repeat something, it's just because I didn't hear. It's not that I don't believe you or,
Right.
And everyone comes up to me later and says, I had no idea you wore hearing aids. I'm like, I know, I cover that stuff up so well, right? But in that moment when I'm willing to own it, I'm free. And I'm really, like you said, connecting with people. I'm saying I have a real disability, but it's not stopping me from living the life I love. And if you have a disability, I have a lot of compassion for that. And I want to work with you through it. And it's a much different place of relating than my old way where I was trying to keep it all under wraps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. That's a lot.
It is. But so to your point, what do I get out of that? Why authenticity? Why does it matter? Because I guess I'm a really huge believer in unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a sucker for a transformation story. Beauty and the Beast is my favorite Disney movie by far.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You know, bookish brunette changes people with her unconditional love. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And for me, being authentic is unconditional love for myself.
Oh, yeah.
That then gives me the space to be unconditionally loving towards everyone I meet.
Yeah.
And that does unlock people. That's what people are craving, right? Why do we go to church? Why do we buy makeup? Why do we listen to a certain kind of music? Why do we work out? Because we want to be loved unconditionally.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that.
So this kind of leads me to my next question.
Okay.
If in our imaginations, we really imagined a world where you were being authentic most of the time and I was being authentic most of the time, and so was everybody else, what would be possible in the world then?
You know, Flame, and I know you and I have talked about this before, that to me, it really does seem like it's this sort of skeleton key, that authenticity does open all sorts of doors that appear closed now. And that if we could really allow ourselves to be who we truly are, what gifts do we have to apply to the challenges that our world faces? What else do we have to offer to not just ourselves, but our communities and the challenges of the people that, you know, live near us or even halfway around the world? But if you're not being authentic, then the world never gets to have the benefit of your brilliance. And I think we are starting to see a shift happen. And I love seeing this, especially in sort of the teenagers that I'm close to in my life, and that they seem to, you know, yes, they're still becoming full human beings. They're still under development, but they have this ability to be authentic. It seems to come a little bit easier for them, this particular generation. And I see them using their voices to change things, to shine light on issues that have existed for decades and decades and decades and decades. And it's just, for me, it's been so inspiring to see like, oh yeah, when people show up and own their voices and aren't afraid to use them, all of a sudden we're like, oh yeah, maybe things don't have to be the way they are. Maybe there is a better way of doing this. And to see people that are teenagers, and I think this happened like in the 60s as well, when you see these people really being very authentic and sharing their voices, all of a sudden, big, important conversations and big, important changes start happening. So I know I sort of went around the mulberry bush about that for a minute, but I really do think it's true that I think there are these, you know, meaty challenges that we have that all of a sudden become easier to deal with when people own who they are and are willing to share that.
This might seem off base, but I keep thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you don't meet those needs at the bottom of the triangle, right, the food, shelter, water, warmth kind of thing, you'll never have access to the next layer and the next layer and the next layer.
Right.
And authenticity is actually pretty far up the scale on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when I hear you talking about some of the younger generations, it makes me really smile, especially as a mother and a coach, like, oh, that means we're meeting people's needs in a more fundamental way at a younger age. Because in a way, inauthenticity is like an instinct. It's a survival instinct.
Yeah.
And when we don't have to live from our instincts, what's left? Our spirit, our wholeness.
Yeah.
And from that place, we are unconditionally loving and we have compassion for what it is to be human, that it is hard and it causes suffering and it's a journey. And therefore we want to lift people up on that journey. And so all of human life takes on a value that it just didn't take on before.
Yeah.
So then we start to look at social justice and say, wait a minute, how could it be that almost everyone in jail for this crime also has a head injury? Maybe we should be working on the head injury piece and not the punishment piece, you know?
Yeah.
We start to look at diabetes management, not as a matter of having a malfunction of one of our organs, but as a function of overeating because we're lonely. I'm like, that's solvable.
Yeah. Right.
And
and what you're getting at here, I think, is also that there's a connection between authenticity and creativity. That being more authentic also allows you to see things in a more creative way.
Yes, because innovation is possible in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, but it's not when we're living in the instincts and the amygdala.
Oh,
right. I mean, literally blood flows in two different ways. And until we meet the needs and the amygdala is soothed, we will live inauthentically. We will be acting out of fight, flight, or freeze rather than unconditional love, creativity, and possibility.
Whew. I love all of it.
Right? So that is what authenticity is and why it matters to us.
Yes. Yep. Agreed.
My friends in college used to tease me because I would always talk about world peace. And I don't think any of them...
As one does.
I don't think any of them think world peace is possible, but I am one of those idealistic people who believes it is someday. And there are real avenues we can take to get there. Are we going to get there in this generation? No. But the fact that we could even record a podcast about authenticity and hope to have listeners tells me that these conversations are being had and these possibilities are becoming more and more tangible.
Agreed. Absolutely. That's great. I mean, we covered a lot of ground, and I love that.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Spark Sisters.
Today's episode included editing and original music from Podcast Edition. You can find them at podcastedition.com. If you'd like to learn more about this series or connect with us, visit sparksisterspodcast.com.